All right, you maggots, listen up. Now, if you've been following, let me put my light on here. Let's see if we can screw the camera up. It doesn't make much difference. If you followed my escapades or my slog on the Hal Crafters SX42, you realize I got it almost put back together. And this gear here, my fingernails are long today, watch out. It's cracked. So just to get a blank piece of metal that's brass, quarter-inch thick, this size, just to try to make the gear without tools is basically impossible. So I went walking. I told you I got caught in a rainstorm. And at some point, I realized that I could use a nut, a brass nut. Now, what you see here is I've drilled the brass nut out, and I got a friction fit on a post, and this will spin in a hand drill, a battery operated hand drill. It'll spin, and I'll put it up against a belt sander and get it close to the size that I need. Then the next step would be to put the gear that broke on the unit, and hopefully we do. We have enough meat. Transfer the slots onto this. Will be rounded at that point, and hopefully there'll be enough meat to be able to make this gear out of this brass nut. It's going to be very close, but see, until I see that it won't work, I keep working on it. That's how I am. Now, other people would spend $69, buy the whole module for the radio, and possibly have something else wrong. I don't want to go that route. Also, I'm afraid that maybe the nut on the used one will go bad just like this one went. Now, if you know anything about the RadioShack DX302, the gear in the radio breaks. The plastic ages, it breaks. But there is a remote control car that uses the same gear. And for a while, you could get that gear. I don't know if you can get it now, but that was one of the radios that people would always say, the gear is going to be broken, and you can go get this RC gear to put in it. And years ago, I bought one of those radios, and the gear was broken. I ordered the gear. I put it in there. But the radio drifted really bad. The frequency counter in the radio told you the frequency, but it drifted. In other words, even though the frequency was drifting, the frequency counter was staying with it. But I didn't like the radio. I ended up selling it to some guy. But anyway, that's how I think. See, I'll think about something, and at some point, I won't think about it anymore. But as I was walking, I start thinking, I wonder how close a 1/4-20 nut is to that gear, because this is a really small gear. And I came home, I went and got in my bin. I have about 10 1/4-20 brass nuts, and I put one up against the gear, and I noticed, I'm like, it might work. And I'm like, I have to work on it. So the first step was to drill the 1/4-inch hole through the center, and this hole has to be such that when it goes down on this shaft, there's a spline here. So you make the gear, you put it on here, and you press fit it down onto that spline. And hopefully, I think my dad used to say you want about 3/1000ths. Anyway, it is what it is now, because this is a friction fit on a 1/4-inch shaft. So this nut, which will become a gear, when it goes down this shaft, I already checked it. It's going to be tight. Press fit it down. Then when it gets to the spline, it's going to get even tighter. And all that gook there, that's grease and super glue. The person tried to super glue the nut, the gear in place. Yeah, that's the kind of crap I managed to always find on YouTube. And I'll tell you, this is basically the last radio. And a normal person would have put the radio away. And yeah, I got to get to it. And they never get to it. But I'm walking. It starts to rain. I put my umbrella up, and the rain starts coming in sideways. It was really bad. It took some trees down. It was a bad storm, another bad storm. But anyway, in my mind, I said, gee, I wonder how close a brass nut would be to that gear. That's how I think. And then once I find that there should be enough material on that nut to make this gear, I have to keep going forward with it. And one person basically said something to me about the gear. Well, this gear is very simple. It's not like a normal gear. It's very simple because it relies on the backlash of a split gear. So go read up on gears. That's all I can tell you. I did. In other words, in order to figure out this is a spur gear, it looks very close to the size of a planetary gear used in little hand-powered, battery-powered screwdrivers. I did a lot of work. Even though I can't get this gear, I'm afraid to buy the whole module because it'll be just as bad. But in other words, I don't just stop there. Even something when it crashes and burns, I try to figure out why did it crash and burn. Now, I know that there's enough material here on that 1/4 nut. That means that it's just a matter of figuring out how to turn this down. Now, I told you I'm going to put this in a drill, a hand drill, battery drill, and I'm going to spin it backwards and hold it up against a belt sander as it's turning. I've done this type of work before, but the part was much bigger and it didn't need to be as accurate. It would be the crank organ. Go look at the crank organ. It was all done with hand tools. I've done this type of work before. I've also done a gear once before, very similar to this. It was a 7-day clock for a guy, but it was a gear that was right next to the mainspring in the clock. It stripped out, and the guy kept saying the clock was really rare. Those people are annoying to me. Everything they have is rare. Everything you have is just common stuff. But anyway, I took the gear out. I kept looking at it, and I went down to the machine shop, and the guy took a piece of material. He drilled a hole in the center for me, and then I came back up. Basically, did the same thing. You know, you put it on the shaft, and then you put the gear on the shaft, and then you take a file, and I'm talking little files, little tiny miniature, even smaller than I have a set of machinist files. Let me show you how big these things are, and you're going to say those are really small. All right, this is a tool and die set that I use. I've been using these for years. All right, these are Sears tool and die files. And these are small. These probably could do that gear. Some of these are triangular edges. This is like a knife edge on this. So in order to cut the slot, so what you would do is you would match up the closest one. Look at that. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's the one. So in other words, after you make this round, this part round, you then transfer each slot onto here. When you cut the slot, it forms the tooth. It's a reverse thing. You're making the slot which forms the tooth. And I told you I've done this before. And I want to also say something. I was a lot younger then, and I was sitting at RCA with time to kill. I had all my tubes up under the engineer tells you how to put them up under what voltages. And then there's a period of time, it could be a day before you have any more work. So in other words, I had the clock on my desk. I had it apart. I can even tell you the guy's name. And then I have a block of it would be a brass that the machine shop drilled a hole for me. And they turned down the outer edge. So all I had to do was cut the slots in it. We'll call them slots. There's probably a name for them. They're not the teeth. The teeth get formed after you cut the slots. But this is the type of file set if you get involved with larger clocks. I have a set of files that are half the size of these. They're miniature. They're for doing model ships and stuff like that. I think that's it. All right, that's it for now.